even know I'm doing kicks. They don't even know it. They don't even show it. For real.
You know, ain't nobody clout chasing it. This going on way before that. They chasing a nigga home from high school, all that, whooping them, all that.
Whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
So, hold up, somebody got chased?
You say what?
Lord. Man, they chased that
What's
man.
up? I don't, you not.
Way
you not
before,
really
like, you know what I'm saying? Back in the time, way before this rap got the popping, way before they started rapping. They was shorties. We was standing.
That's how he got this. His ass was dissing, bro. You feel? That's how he made it real.
No mission, SP no limit. I get the smith and forget the witness. That finger itching, I get the twitching and feeling different.
Like even before Herb even came around, you feel me? This was like 6th grade elementary school. Has been always fighting, but in
So they been going on today?
Yeah.
This ain't no. So, but you two think it's new?
They think it's new. They think it's clout.
What the hell? Don't ask questions about my block. Don't know who to tell. Don't ask questions about my ops. Don't know ShootaShellz. I don't know the ops. All I told is Glock. All we told is effing is. All I know is pop.
Herb stayed on that. Like he'll tell you, he's still on 74th and Kingston. You feel me? But he won't really on that. You feel me? Even if he was on that, it make it seem like it was that when they sent.
Switch don't jam up. He dead on the ground, picking mans up, shells on the ground, let nigga head bust. We spin that with 100, put a beam on the back of it, running.
It was a shock to me when he even said my name in a little song. Cause I'm like, he would teach you all the time. I kind of feel like he was clout chasing. To me, like when he did like that was super duper old. You feel me? This was like 2012 before he really got hot. You feel me? So when I mentioned my name, was showing me like, Dad, you heard Lil Herb mention your name in a little song. So I look at the song. You know, he said the little BlackMobb, you know, shoot it, we name change. So I took it as okay, fucking know who you is. You feel me? So a little by dissing you. You feel me? But it wasn't really that though. You feel me?
150, Kobe squad, got no limit. 150, Kobe squad, got no limit.
You said we out in 5th and 6th grade fight.
I was young as hell.
Can change that?
Nah.
It been a lot of bloodshed though. You feel me? Even if
bodies lost.
Even if had money, you feel me? Do that rap. Who's to say that if a certain from down now, you feel me? It probably, you know, certain they got the money, they probably don't be on that trying to, you know, risk it all and got to make it locked up, all that, but it's still gonna be that ain't in play that got some bread that can really stop. They gonna be still keeping it. You feel me? It'll keep happening. We just keep this. It's just gonna be a, you feel me, an everlasting cycle. It'll keep going on and on and on. You feel me? But drop it. Just leave it alone. Just let it die down. But long as it still shoot.
Show your face. Show your face, please, with sugar on top.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all know my slogan. I don't know it all, but I know what I've been through. Now, before we get into this video, please make sure you head on down to Instagram and follow us on our official Instagram page at Hookah Anonymous _. We're able to be a little more explicit, a little more uncensored, and share content freely without running the risk of having our channel terminated. So, once again, make sure you head on down to Instagram and follow us on our official Instagram page at Hookah Anonymous _. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers. So if you like this video, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified every time we drop new content. Now let's get into what you guys came here to see. Now, there's no doubt about it that ShootaShellz will probably go down in drill history to have suffered one of the worst deaths of them all. From the way he was caught, where most people feel that he was set up by a female, down to the feds picking up his case recently after it's been a cold case since he lost his life back in 2017. Now, the gruesome pictures of the crime scene will hit the internet, and although we can't show you here, I can't even begin to imagine how someone would look after being shot in the face anywhere from 15 to 18 times. Now, ShootaShellz has an interesting story all around, from becoming an orphan at a young age, then getting into the streets due to the lack of family structure after losing both of his parents in such a short time period, then getting in trouble with the law and serving time, down to getting involved in the beef that some would say he didn't even start between him and nolimit, mainly G Herbo and them. Now, from the outside looking in and judging from the interview he did with zacktv, it feels that if they would have been smart enough to push peace at the time, then his death could have been avoided. But like they always say, once blood has shed in the streets, it's hard to tell someone how to feel or to not get back after losing a friend or a relative and having to watch your ops make fun of them while you're grieving. Some say that's the very thing that got ShootaShellz caught up in the beef, as some believe he became a big target after he allegedly would get revenge on the same guys that took his brother's life. And at that point, it was no looking back. Now there's a bunch of stories on YouTube covering ShootaShellz and his come up, but we're going to just tackle the key things that led up to his demise and also speak on the feds recently picking up his case after it's been cold since it happened. New paperwork will state that there's a witness that pointed out guys belonging to No Limit that was spotted on the crime scene the day ShootaShellz was shot and killed. So y'all subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, hit that thumbs up button so we can get this video into the algorithm and spread awareness about the story of BlackMobb's own ShootaShellz. Now let's get into it. Cedron Doze, aka ShootaShellz, who grew up on the east side of Chicago in the area known as Terrortown that shared territory between BlackMobb and No Limit. Shooter grew up in the area of BlackMobb located between 74th to 75th and Phillips, which explains the 75th tattoo that he had above his chest near his shoulder. Terrortown is an area known for its crime and for being one of the most dangerous areas in Chicago, so when you mix that in with a child that has no parents, no guidance, he has no choice but to fall victim to the streets. Now ShootaShellz lost both of his parents as his mother passed away when he was just 9 years old due to natural causes, and his father was killed just 2 years later when he was 11 years old. Being that young with no family to run to or take him in, left him sleeping around different friends' houses, but that didn't last for too long. His big brother Scooby, who was already in the streets, would teach Shooter the ropes and bring him in, but he would be later killed back in 2014, which we'll get back to because this will actually spark something in ShootaShellz, where people felt it made him a big target for his ops. Now ShootaShellz would get his alias back in junior high school. As he explains, he gave himself the nickname back in 6th grade. It was a nickname that stuck with him, and as he got older, he would add the shells part on the end, making it ShootaShellz. As we said before, BlackMobb and nlmb shared territory and everybody was cool with each other at one point in time, as no killings were going on in the beginning because No Limit was more about making money. Besides, everybody was kids. The most they would have is school rivalries, being that everyone went to different schools, and it's just something you did when you were young. The problem struck when these same kids that were once fighting evolved into shooting and using guns, and once the first person lost their life due to gun violence, that's when the war would start, and the same kids that were once fist fighting now began using guns, taking each other's lives as they played for keeps. In 2009 is when the first body dropped, and that body belonged to No Limit, as a man named Vito was shot and killed by BlackMobb members for hustling in their territory. At that point, the war was on, and the two sides that once shared the territory and was cool would become ops in a deadly battle between both sides. In 2011, nlmb would get revenge 2 times harder, as BlackMobb members Hakeem and Rayvon would be shot and killed. In this same year, ShootaShellz himself will be shot, and although it hasn't been publicized about who was behind the attack, with the war going on, people automatically assumed it was No Limit behind it. This would increase ShootaShellz' envy, as he would also begin rapping at the same time, although he didn't take it serious. But he also describes in an interview with Iman Visions that around that time in 2011 is when Herbo first dissed him out of nowhere on the song he did called I'm a Boss featuring Lil Bibby. This is also why ShootaShellz hated that people thought he was clout chasing when he was dissing No Limit and Herbo, because he stated that Herb dissed him first, and at that time ShootaShellz felt like it was Herb who was clout chasing because they personally wasn't into it with each other enough to be making diss songs, although both of their crews were at war. ShootaShellz will go on to say that he looks like a clout chaser from people who are on the outside looking in because they don't know the history between them and the city. But if they knew what was going on, they'll know that this is a beef that they all shared since they were in elementary school, even before the guns came into play. Now in 2013, ShootaShellz would allegedly be a part of BlackMobb members that would end up taking the life of an nlmb member in June. It's alleged that nlmb affiliate Simo would get caught near a store, and ShootaShellz allegedly ran up and shot him multiple times in the head and chest area. Now keep this situation in mind because it will come back full circle later on when we describe what happens to ShootaShellz the day he lost his life. Simo was a very loved member amongst the guys, especially No Limit Ramo and No Limit Cairo in particular. Back in 2013, it was almost normal for guys in the drill culture to incriminate themselves and others on social media. When the news broke out about Simo, No Limit Ramo would take to his Twitter, tweeting out saying, quote, "Go tell Shooter we name changing, and that's on the guys. #DieBlackMobb. Fast forward to 2014, things would semi-calm down between nolimit and BlackMobb. It's no coincidence that around that time, ShootaShellz would face legal troubles, as he describes in an interview that a woman he was staying with at the time allowed the police to search the home they were both staying at. Shoota explained that the woman claimed she didn't give up any information to the police. However, she gave them access to the apartment through a permit they needed from her, in which she approved of because her name was on the apartment. It wasn't much, but law enforcement knew ShootaShellz were behind a lot of the bodies that dropped, but without proper proof, they couldn't tie him to any of them. So even though it wasn't much, raiding his place where they figured they'll find something to be able to pin him to a crime was enough for them to get him on something at least. And that they did. Upon the search, police found drugs and weapons, and ShootaShellz would be charged for them and spend a short time in jail, which is kind of weird because I don't know how their system is, you know, the whole Chicago, their gun laws and drug laws, but he was only given about 18 months in jail and returned right after that, despite them having drugs and weapons. Now, while ShootaShellz was incarcerated, another crew named ABK, who were actually cool with BlackMobb and nlmb at one point in time, would end up catching tension with BlackMobb. When BlackMobb was at war with nlmb, ABK didn't pick sides because they were cool with both sides. But in 2014, ABK got closer with nolimit, as some of his members would get into it with BlackMobb, and that's when ABK would eventually pick a side. Now, this was the beginning of something that may have made ShootaShellz a #1 target for the ops, but also turned him into a savage himself, because ABK would have rumored to be the ones behind the death of ShootaShellz's 21-year-old brother, Scooby. Keep in mind, ShootaShellz was locked up when BlackMobb would begin beefing with ABK, so although it was new to him, he didn't care. He just wanted revenge for his brother's life being taken, and it's alleged that ABK members were the ones behind it. Now, the person accused for the hit was a guy by the name of ABK Yogi. Rumor has it that Scoob was standing outside at approximately 12:30 p.m. on 74th and Phillips Avenue. I'm assuming he was comfortable there because although it was a war going on, and most would think that it's not safe just to be standing outside, he was still in BlackMobb's territory. So I'm assuming he felt it was safe. However, with ops always looking to even the score or go up on the score, standing in your own territory could not be safe as well, because you're faced with being a victim to an op looking to get stripes for his team. And that's exactly what happened according to rumors. It said that ABK Yogi was looking for BlackMobb members, seen Scoob standing outside, ran up to him and shot him a couple times before leaving the scene. Shortly after, Scoob was pronounced dead. Now, I'm not sure why he lost his life. Some people believe it was a hit. Some people think it was just, the other side trying to even the score, even though people say it was due to him taking the lives of a few members from sets such as ABK and nolimit. But it was never publicly proven. To my knowledge, it was just a rival looking to score, and Scoob just so happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is the part that made ShootaShellz go into a rage, because he has certainly been through a lot. During the zacktv interview, Zack would think that Shoota was almost 30 years old, but Shoota would let him know that he's only 21. Which is kind of crazy, because even I was shocked seeing that he said he was 21, because Shoota looked like a real grown man. But he would also explain to Zack that when you've been through what he's been through, losing his parents at a young age, being an orphan, running the streets, getting locked up, losing his brother, it forces you to mature fast, especially with the beef with his ops. And that's exactly what it did. In the end, ShootaShellz lost his mother, father, and his brother. Some say he had another brother somewhere, but I didn't see any real confirmation anywhere. However, after returning to the scene, Shoota came out with a vengeance and wanted immediate get back for his brother, and that he did. Shoota had blood in his eyes and was literally just waiting to find ABK Yogi, as he was the one rumored to have killed his big brother Scoob. Shoota would hit the jackpot in June of 2016 when he would finally catch up to ABK Yogi. 20-year-old Yogi was outside with another associate in the 7400 block of South Shore Drive. Shoota spotted the duo and immediately jumped out of his car, running up to the two and firing multiple shots. The other associate got away, although he was struck once, but he wasn't really any of Shoota's concern. It was Yogi that Shoota desperately wanted for his brother, which caused Shoota to stand over Yogi in what seemed to be a crime of passion, stood over Yogi and proceeded to shoot him repeatedly in his face and chest. Yogi suffered from multiple face shots and shots to the chest, where there was just no way he would survive. Once again, Remember the scenario, as it'll play a part into why they did what they did to ShootaShellz when it was his time for his demise. Now fast forward to 2017, Shoota would catch a buzz after releasing a song called Death of 150 that was released in April of 2017 and currently sits at over 8 million views. He would follow it up with another track called F-150 Anthem, and he released this in June of 2017, but that one wouldn't be nowhere near his other diss song, as it only sits at 148,000 views to this day. Now most people would say that Shoota lost his life because of the disrespectful songs he put out dissing his ops that were both dead and alive, but some would say that it was deeper than just the music. Then you have some that feel that both could have played a part. However you feel, make no mistake that Shoota definitely pressed a few buttons, being that he was allegedly active in the streets and rapping about it. But in July of 2017, just 1 month after releasing his last No Limit diss, ShootaShellz would fatally suffer the same exact treatment that he have handed out to plenty of others. On July 10, 2017, in broad daylight, ShootaShellz would lose his life in the early morning hours of a summer day in Chicago around 9:30 a.m. Reports state that ShootaShellz was walking out of a home in the Auburn Grisham neighborhood, located on the south side of Chicago in the 8100 block of South Paulina Street with another individual. Gresham is considered to be an urban suburban neighborhood for the most part, and its residents consist of a lot of city workers including firefighters, law enforcement, and railroad workers. Overall, it's a neighborhood where it's occupied by the working class, and you wouldn't expect someone to be tragically killed in the middle of the street in broad daylight. However, reports say Shoota was walking to his car when a white Nissan Altima pulled up with 3 suspects hopping out, shooting and striking ShootaShellz as he fell to the ground. Reports say that it's when ShootaShellz hit the floor when the 3 men would stand over him and take turns shooting him in the face and upper body area. The suspects would hop back into the car and flee the scene after they were done, and in the end, it said that ShootaShellz was hit 15 to 18 times in the face alone and also received shots to his chest. Reporting officers would note 43 shell casings on the ground altogether. Here's an autopsy report that was done a day after Shoota was killed. Now if y'all remember when I told y'all to remember how Shoota killed ABK Yogi, it's because rumor has it that Shoota was brutally violated with all them shots to the face, because allegedly that's the same way he did ABK Yogi, as well as No Limit Simo. After ShootaShellz's death, rumors of a possible setup will begin to surface, stating that ShootaShellz would be set up by a female he was visiting, which is how he was able to be caught. And I don't know how true that is, but it does make a little sense. What are the odds that he's coming from a neighborhood like Gresham, where no one else would know he was there, and the fact it happened so early in the morning, and the fact that everything happened like clockwork. So it is maybe just a coincidence or not, that ShootaShellz was leaving the female's house early in the morning, and these guys just so happened to be in the area, and neither one of them are from there, and was able to time it perfectly, and from the time he left the house to the time he was getting in the car, he was shot and killed. So I don't know, y'all let me know how y'all feel about that in the comments. Do y'all think he was set up or not? Now the unfortunate part of it all is that, judging from the interview he did with zacktv, Shoota was willing to squash all the problems on both sides. If they were willing to push peace the way some of them are today, then maybe he'll still be here. He made it clear that it's bloodshed, but if both sides could agree to just leave it alone and stop dissing and killing, then he'll be willing to do that, which I think would have been dope, because ShootaShellz was actually a good artist. He actually had a lot of potential, and who knows where he would have been if he still would have been alive today. But during his interview with Zach, he did make an interesting point that I brought up before in the past. When it comes to pushing peace, they said that maybe the guys who got the money within No Limit may want to keep the peace and squash things, but it's a slippery slope, because just because they want to, don't mean the guys that are in the hood will feel the same, and that's why they have to make sure they're always on point. Everyone's not going to be on the same page all the time when it comes to peace. One wrong move can cause a backdoor situation and you could lose your life. You don't get no do-overs once you lose your life, so you have to be very cautious. Now time went on and ShootaShellz's case became cold. They never had any suspects charged or convicted for his death until recently. Ironically, the feds will now pick up the death of ShootaShellz, and y'all know that usually when the feds come, they approach with evidence and ready to hand out time. I don't know what's been going on lately, but we've been seeing the feds step in a lot of situations stemming from the state crimes and picking up cases on the guidelines of a RICO. We've seen this most notably recently with FBG Duck's case, where the feds picked up the case against O-Block, who are now currently in trial, where some of the sentences go as far as life in prison. Now, in the case of the feds picking up ShootaShellz case, they will have an eyewitness who described everything that happened that day ShootaShellz was tragically killed, on top of who were the individuals involved. I'm assuming this would be the individual described being with ShootaShellz the day he passed, and this individual would pin 3 nlmb members to the scene, including Mad Max. According to documents, they were also able to use cell phone towers to pin certain individuals to the scene as well, making the feds' case even more stronger. Now, the unidentified witness will make a statement, and I want to read to you guys a small excerpt from the statement given to law enforcement to know what they have, and y'all could judge on that. Starting from the second paragraph, it will state, quote, "On the day that the victim Cedron Doles was killed, Blank stated he walked with Doles to his car. Blank stated he noticed a white Nissan parked on the east side of the street, parked a few car lengths to the north. Blank stated Doles' vehicle was parked on the west side of the street. Blank stated 3 male black subjects exited the white Nissan, all wearing black hoodies. Blank stated 2 of the 3 male black subjects wore dreadlocks and were medium to dark complexion. Blank stated the 3 offenders were approximately blank height. Blank stated he was on the passenger side of Doles' vehicle while Doles was standing in the street. Blank stated the 3 male black subjects, offenders, started shooting at Doles. Blank stated he did not see the driver of the white Nissan shooting, just the 3 offenders. Blank stated he then ran southbound and then westbound and out of view of the offenders. Later that day, July 10, 2017, Blank was arrested for armed habitual criminal. The RDs and agents did not question Blanks about his arrest. In the attempt to identify the offenders, the RD showed Blank 5 separate photo arrays. Each photo array contains 6 color photographs. The RD read the photo live lineup advisory form whereby Blank agreed to view the photo arrays and wished to not be video or audio tape. Because of manpower issues, there was not an independent administrator used for these photo arrays. Blank signed the advisory form and viewed all 5 photo arrays, which were subsequently identified 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Blank did not make an identification in photo arrays number 1 and number 5. Blank did not recognize Blank as an OPS shooter in photo array number 2. Blank did recognize Blank in photo array number 4, indicating that Blank and Blank attended grade school together. Blank also stated that he did not think that Blank would do something like that. Finally, in photo array number 3, Blank selected the suspect in position number 2 and positively identified Chris Jackson, CB, stating, quote, "Chris, he was out there shooting. I know Chris from the neighborhood as Little Chris, Mad Max." The advisory form and photo arrays were subsequently inventoried under Blank. This interview was concluded. Now, I think the feds picked this case up in 2020, officially. However, a few months ago, this witness statement had been publicized. I don't know if whoever the witness was felt comfortable pinning Mad Max to the scene due to him passing away himself in 2018, but the witness definitely pointed him out as one of the main suspects he's seen in the street shooting for sure. Now, judging from what this tells us, they already had the drop on ShootaShellz because they were waiting for him a few cars down until he came out of the house. And as soon as he did, that's when they hopped out and got him. Rumor has it that he didn't have a weapon on him because there was no weapon recovered from his persons or anywhere on the scene. My only assumption as to why he didn't have a weapon on him is because he didn't feel he needed one for where he was going, meaning that he was that comfortable, or so he thought. But this just goes to show that he didn't feel threatened being wherever he was, although rumors say that he may have had a weapon in his car. I'm not sure. However, I'm sure that if he felt he needed it where he was, it would have been on him. Because just like what actually did happen to him, you never know when your ops will be lurking. But, if you're in an area where you feel that you won't ever see your ops, then maybe you will be a little more relaxed opposed to you being in the hood and having to be on high alert looking over your shoulder. The only thing is, it's hard to defend yourself against a possible setup, no matter how ready you may even think you are, because you're placed at a disadvantage. Now, also keep in mind that before the death of ShootaShellz, the feds have already joined forces with Chicago police to investigate the violence that stemmed from the war between nolimit and BlackMobb. So it was already that bad because CPD didn't have the proper grounds to convict these guys, whether they knew they carried out some of these crimes or not. With the feds having way more advances, they'll step in to help and hopefully put a stop to the ongoing violence that blanketed the Terrortown neighborhood. So with ShootaShellz getting killed and the way he was killed and the weapons used to have him killed, and with a witness pinning 3 nlmb members to the death, the feds will be investigating, and there's no telling when they'll come wrapping everybody up for their involvement in everybody's death. Some already passed away themselves, others doing time for unrelated crimes, and some got out the street and onto bigger things and able to tell their story. However, there's no statute of limitations on homicides, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening. Now that's pretty much it, y'all. ShootaShellz's story was very interesting to me, to say the least. And the most shocking part is when you hear everything he's been through or took part in, you would think he was a grown man. But the kid was just 21 years old when he lost his life, which is crazy. But not only that, we also have to remember that a lot of these guys from the drill era that we seen and we was, all entertained by, they were young. These guys were carrying weapons at the age of 13, 14, 15, 16. It was crazy. So, getting older and realizing how young these guys was and how they lost their lives at such a short time span, it's crazy. It's almost like it was a genocide or something, right? So, rest in peace to ShootaShellz. And y'all let me know what y'all think about this, man, in the comments. I enjoyed doing this one. Let me also know who y'all wouldn't mind seeing us doing stories on, and we'll get to some of the ones we actually find interesting as well. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell so you're notified every time we drop new content. And remember, as long as we keep on watching, I'm going to keep on dropping. And I'm out.